George Washington was born on February 22, 1732, in Westmoreland County, Virginia. His father died in 1743 when George was 11, forcing him into responsibility early and shaping the discipline that defined his life. He began working as a surveyor in 1748 at age 16. Surveying the frontier taught him how to read terrain, understand geography, and navigate wilderness, skills that later shaped his military strategy. Washington entered the French and Indian War in 1753 at age 21. He survived the disastrous Battle of the Monongahela in 1755 and emerged with a reputation for courage and resilience. After the war, he stepped away from military life and entered a new chapter. From age 27 to 43, Washington lived what looked like a quiet life, but these years shaped him into the leader the Revolution needed. He married Martha Custis on January 6, 1759, and became stepfather to her 2 children. He expanded Mount Vernon into one of Virginia's most successful plantations. He served in the Virginia House of Burgesses from 1758 to 1775, gaining political experience and becoming a respected voice for colonial rights. He also invested in Western lands, giving him first-hand knowledge of frontier geography and diplomacy. His opposition to British rule grew gradually. He never forgot how British officers treated colonial soldiers as inferior. British taxes, the Stamp Act of 1765 and the Townshend Acts of 1767 hit Virginia planters hard, and the Coercive Acts of 1774 convinced him that Britain intended to rule the colonies by force. By the time he attended the First Continental Congress in 1774, he believed British rule had become unjust and dangerous to American liberty. Washington was unanimously appointed Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army on June 15, 1775, at age 43. His leadership during the Revolutionary War didn't just win battles, it held the cause together. In March 1776, he forced the British to evacuate Boston. On December 25, 1776, he crossed the icy Delaware River at night and surprised Hessian forces at Trenton, reviving American morale. Days later, he won at Princeton on January 3, 1777, proving the Continental Army could defeat British regulars. During the winter at Valley Forge, he held the army together through starvation and disease and brought in Baron von Steuben, who transformed the troops into a disciplined fighting force. Washington's leadership helped secure French support in 1778, and in October 1781, he coordinated American and French forces to trap the British at Yorktown, ending the war. He resigned his military commission on December 23, 1783, returning to private life. His voluntary surrender of power shocked the world and strengthened the idea of republican government. But the new nation struggled. Washington was called back to preside over the Constitutional Convention in 1787, at age 55. His presence brought unity and legitimacy. When the Constitution was ratified, he was unanimously elected the first president of the United States. Washington took the oath of office on April 30, 1789, at age 57. His presidency was defined by restraint and precedent-setting decisions. He created the first cabinet, signed the Judiciary Act of 1789 establishing the federal court system, and oversaw the creation of the first Bank of the United States in 1791. He approved the Coinage Act of 1792, establishing the U.S. Mint and the dollar. In 1790, he selected the site for the permanent capital, helping shape the early plans for Washington, D.C. He also set the tone for presidential behavior, avoiding personal attacks, refusing to act like royalty, and modeling dignity in public life. In 1794, Washington established the permanent military post at West Point. His surveying background and deep understanding of the Hudson River Valley made him recognize its strategic importance. Congress later formalized it as the United States Military Academy in 1802. He also faced major challenges. The Whiskey Rebellion of 1794 was the first major test of federal authority. Frontier farmers resisted a federal tax on whiskey, which they relied on as currency. Washington believed the new Constitution meant nothing if the government couldn't enforce its laws. He federalized militia troops and personally rode at the head of the army. The rebellion collapsed without a major battle, proving that the federal government had real authority. Foreign affairs were equally difficult. Washington's Neutrality Proclamation of 1793 kept the United States out of the war between Britain and France. He also supported the Jay Treaty of 1795, which eased tensions with Britain and helped prevent another war. Meanwhile, political parties emerged from the rivalry between Alexander Hamilton and Thomas Jefferson, a development Washington disliked. Washington's Christian faith shaped his character and leadership. He believed in providence, God's guiding hand, and often credited divine protection for the success of the revolution. He practiced Christian virtues such as humility, duty, honesty, and self-control. He also championed religious freedom, writing letters that affirmed the rights of Christians, Jews, Catholics, Quakers, and others. His famous letter to the Hebrew congregation in Newport in 1790 promised that America would give to bigotry no sanction. Although Washington did not create the Electoral College, the system was designed during the Constitutional Convention of 1787 as a compromise between direct popular vote, Congress choosing the president, and state legislatures choosing the president. His unanimous elections in 1789 and 1792 set the tone for how electors viewed the office. After Washington stepped down, the first contested election took place in 1796. John Adams became president, and Thomas Jefferson, his political rival, became vice president because the original system awarded the vice presidency to the runner-up. The chaotic election of 1800, when Jefferson and Aaron Burr tied, led to the 12th Amendment in 1804, creating separate votes for president and vice president. Washington refused a third term and delivered his farewell address on September 19, 1796, at age 64. He left office on March 4, 1797, at age 65, establishing the tradition of peaceful transfer of power. George Washington died on December 14, 1799, at age 67, at his home in Mount Vernon, Virginia. His cause of death was acute bacterial epiglottitis, a sudden and severe throat infection. His life reminds us that leadership is measured not by how much power a person holds, but by how faithfully they serve, and how willingly they let go when the work is done. If you enjoyed this episode, consider subscribing so you don't miss the next chapter in this presidential series.